Aloha and welcome to today's presentation. Normally we're pretty, we're pretty lighthearted whenever we talk about the apocalypse. That's the subject of today. However, today is going to be a sobering reminder. I do like to talk about the good news behind the apocalypse, and we will. That's how we'll finish things up. I always like to talk about the good news. However, I personally feel, based on my walk and my experience in life and the things that I see on a daily basis in the world that I live in, I feel that the apocalypse is near. I feel like the end of days are the days we are living in right now. I feel that there are plenty, an overwhelming amount of signs and omens that indicate that there is an apocalyptic event that is on the way. I call it the plasma apocalypse. For more information, in-depth information, feel free to check out my book. I wrote a book called Ancient Oblivion, the Plasma Apocalypse, basically the Cliff's Notes on all the things that you can expect to happen. But specifically, I want to start off by talking about doom and gloom. That's what we're going to discuss first, initially. Throughout, I don't know, for the past century at the very least, maybe a little further back than that, there's been this concept of doom and gloom when it comes to the topic of the apocalypse. It's dismissive. People say, "Oh, that's doom and gloom. Oh, that's depressing. I don't want to think about it." Is essentially what that equates to. That's doom and gloom. They're doom and gloom people or whatever. I understand the concept behind fear mongering and people trying to get views and stuff because they're scaring people and that works. I get that, but we're going to discuss it. Okay, I'm going to start off by explaining to you why doom and gloom originally was a good thing, why it still is a good thing. And the way I like to do that is etymology, the study of the origin and the roots of words. Okay, so we're going to check out the word doomsday first, or doom, right? Doom and gloom. We're going to check out those two words. The word doom, the etymological root of that is D-O-M. And essentially, it comes from a word that implies the Lord. Now, if you've been following my latest videos, especially about the firmament and the shape of the world and the shape of the firmament itself and the apex dome, you will notice that oftentimes it is personified and written as the Lord, that the Lord is above, that the Lord is represented by the firmament above us that opens up and depressurizes our atmosphere in a cyclical nature. Okay, this is something that happens often. The apocalypse is not some faraway, distant event that one day might happen and then it'll never happen again. It's also not just the earth exploding or blowing up and that's it, and all of existence just turns black and blinks out of existence and there's nothing left. There are survivors. The earth continues on. It perseveres. But our entire world, the population of the earth, all of mankind, and especially the system that we live in, will be eradicated for the most part. So there will be a lot of destruction. There will be a lot of removal of current systems and paradigms and what we consider to be reality and norms. But the word doom comes from the word dome. They're essentially the exact same word. This is what I found in my research and studies. Doomsday, or the day of the dome. It is the Doomsday. The dome itself is the cause of Doomsday or Doomsday. It is because the dome above us that keeps this world pressurized opens up and causes that depressurization. The word gloom, what does gloom mean? Gloom is related to words like glam, glow, glimmer, and so on and so forth. Originally, it did not mean or imply darkness. It was the opposite. The word gloom meant when something was gloomy, it meant it was glowing. It had a glow to it. And originally it was used to describe the glow during, just before sunrise or the twilight hours just after sunset, the golden hour. This was the gloomy times. It was not depressing. It was not sad. It was seen as something that was beautiful, actually, originally. But that's another indicator of the apocalypse. I'll talk about the omens here in a little while. But everything being flipped upside down. Everything being flipped upside down. Everything being the inverse and becoming the inverse of what it once was is a huge indicator and a huge omen of an upcoming polarity shift, that we have shifted all the way into the extreme other side of things, from people, from people being left-handed to people, the majority of people being right-handed, from being left-brained to right-brained, and flipping our vocabulary, our definitions, our morality, our standards of living, our codes of ethics and whatnot. All of it has been flipped upside down on its head. So when talking about the doom and the gloom, that is the glowing of the sky. That is the glowing of the firmament or the apex dome above us. It is something that is seen and revealed every other cycle. We live during a cycle of darkness. We might have a skylight that goes around, a point of focus that we call the sun. We might have a nightlight that we call the moon. We'll talk about those two as well, because they're changing right now. But those provide light in a dark world during dark times. These are dark times. And I mean that in every form that I can, every way that I can. They're dark times. The moral degradation is a dark time. The state of the people is a dark time. We have entropy on high. People are living longer. They're living shorter lifespans. They're sick. They're weak. And this is not the way it originally was. We go through these cycles, okay? It is the Kali Yuga time right now. And that means just after this time, we shift. We go through a great shift or a great resetting of the world that we live in. And the world that we live in is destroyed, okay? And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and pull up some images just to share in the background as we continue on with this presentation. 1 second. Let's see if I can find it. Is that it? No. Hey, I just got a super chat. Oh, thank you. One moment. I'll be right. Gotta find it. I hid it from myself. Slideshow. There we go. Oh, sweet. Oh, Jim Donovan with $30 in the chat and says there's 49 thumbs up. I'm gonna thumbs up. Heart your little donation. Thank you. And Woundsocket also gifted some memberships. Thank you very much. All right, let's get back to a more sobering note. Okay, when I discuss, because oftentimes this is my favorite subject. This is the crux of my life that so far on my path in life is studying the apocalypse. I feel with all sincereness that this is the secret of the Freemasons. This is the secret of the elite and families the world across and across time that have put themselves in positions of power across the world. This is why they do the hush sign. This is why they do 666. This is why they have their secret handshakes and signals and stuff that they share with one another. This is the ultimate secret. The world has forgotten the apocalypse, okay? And the world laughs at the apocalypse. They scoff at it. They mock it. They dismiss it. They plug their ears and they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. It's not a subject that is of interest to the world at large because they have grown altogether comfortable as slaves living within a system that is designed to support a very select few, okay? Those very select few, as we'll discuss, as we go further, seem to know and seem to be doing their due diligence to prepare and get ready for an apocalyptic event to happen. This apocalyptic event is cyclical. It is not something that we look forward to, that's going to end the earth or anything. This is something that has already happened on our timeline time and time again. Different severity levels, okay? There's different cataclysmic events and polarity shifts and stuff. But this has happened all throughout our timeline, and there's evidence of it, mounds of evidence, especially when we look into our religions and our histories and our hidden histories and our forgotten histories and whatnot. And these images in the background here are going to, hopefully jog some people's memories. Sam, what's up, Sam? Welcome to the Good Vibe Tribe. Been a member for 19 months. Thank you. All right, it's cool. So let me check my notes here. So every time I discuss the apocalypse, it is not because I think it's so cool and it's just so interesting and it's fun to just, to theorize about or whatever. All of those things are true. But the first and foremost reason why I jump onto YouTube and I share my eschatological studies with people and the studies of the ends of things and a reoccurring phenomenon that I call this the plasma apocalypse, which, it's gone by many names all throughout time, is because it's going to happen. It has happened. I'm dead serious when I discuss these things. It might be cool and fun whenever I talk about fantasoids and truth in movies and fiction and stuff, but I'm completely dead serious that the apocalypse is near. A lot of this I will be speaking from my own feelings, okay? I know that many people out there don't like that. They would rather have people bring the receipts and whatnot, but the receipts are there, okay? All you need to do is open your eyes and take a look at the world you live in. There are breadcrumbs of truth all over the place that have fallen to us, that we have a form of psychological scotoma where we can't see and recognize the very obvious that lays all about us, all around us, that makes up and defines the very world we live in. We live on top of an old world, many old worlds that have been completely demolished and ruined. And ancient civilization after ancient civilization have just up and vanished and just disappeared mysteriously. We'll discuss those things too. Here's a quote from the Bible. Okay, I started off in Christianity and in the Bible, and I very much respect the writings that are in the Bible and other religious writings as well, but these really resonate with me. 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 through 4 says this: "Above all, you must understand that in the last days, scoffers will come." Scoffers means trolls. Scoffers means disbelievers, doubters, people that will try to convince you, oh, this is how it's always been. You know, it's just that we have more technology these days, and it's just that there's more people to report strange weather across the world and whatnot. They're wrong. The scoffers are wrong. Okay, all of these omens, all of these events that are taking place, all of the signs of the end of days are happening now more than they ever have, or at least since the last apocalyptic cycle. In the last days, scoffers will come, scoffing and following their own evil desires. They will say, "Where is this coming that he promised?" This is in reference to the return of Jesus, which is 100% completely tied into the plasma apocalypse. Ever since our ancestors died, everything goes on as it has since the beginning of creation. They're saying, oh, ever since our ancestors died, everything's been the same. You can tell by looking at many of these pictures, catacombs. I mean, just look at the catacombs, right? And by the way, I just want to give a quick shout out off the top of my head to My Lunch Break. There's a channel called My Lunch Break. He's doing great work right now on the old world, revealing all of the conspiracies about these ancient structures and how they've been covered up and whatnot, and especially getting into the catacombs and stuff. I really like that. People ask, well, where's all the bodies if there was, ancient apocalypse or whatever? Take a look at the catacombs. That's the first place I would look. Okay, there's just millions and millions of dead bodies just buried underground in cave systems and catacombs and under Catholic churches and cathedrals and whatnot, and it's all very strange. Matthew 24, verse 37 through 39 says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the coming of the Son of Man." If that is not a description of a cyclical apocalypse, I don't know what is, okay? "For in the days before the flood," which was the great last apocalypse, like I said, there's major ones and there's minor ones. That was the great last major apocalypse, was the introduction of the flood. People discuss the flood as if it's gone. They discuss the flood as if it's some event that happened a long time ago, and then, we don't know. We don't really have any evidence or proof, and maybe it was localized, maybe the people were stupid and they just thought it was their own region that was flooded and it happened at different times. No. The world is flooded now. It's called the ocean. All right? And there's more water beneath the ocean than there is on, contained in the ocean itself, according to, recent studies. Now, for in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. They were carrying on. They were carrying on with their lives and their business. They were paying no attention, making no preparations whatsoever to the apocalypse. They had forgotten about it. Okay? If these things are cyclical, so then are we. We are cyclical. Humanity and our nature and the things that happen over and over, they become cyclical. Okay, so we become an omen in and of ourselves to take a look at ourselves, run a self-diagnostic and see, how's humanity acting lately? That's a huge omen of itself. Up to the day when Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. Now, Noah knew. Okay, there are people during these times right now that know. I don't care about proof. I don't care about evidence. I don't care about bringing receipts or anything like that. I also believe in a balance, and the balance to all that fact and receipts and all that garbage. I mean, it's not garbage. It's a part of the balance. But the balance to that is intuition and a deep, innate knowledge and knowing and feeling and sensing, okay? And I sense it, and you sense it. That's probably why you're watching right now, many people. But you sense that the world is wrong. Something is wrong. We live during interesting times. Interesting times always precede the apocalypse, every single time. Why? Because the world's electromagnetic current and flow and everything goes into flux. Okay, I'm very worked up right now because this is serious to me. I don't like hearing people talking about, oh, dismissive. That's doom and gloom. Oh, you're just being negative. No, I'm being reasonable. Okay, I'm being wise myself. Not in trying to convince any of you. Okay. I do this more of a form of self-talk as a reminder for myself. The more I discuss this, the more I talk about this personally, even if it's with the rest of the world, it matters not to me personally if the rest of the world believes it or not. I'm not trying to start a religion or a cult or have people, wholeheartedly devoted to me and what I share with other people. I'm just sharing my path. I'm sharing what I'm seeing in the world. And I feel deep inside of me that there are countless other people out there whose voices are not heard, who are meek and humble, and that they know also, and they feel these things also, and they see what's happening in and with the world that we live in and in ourselves. And they know, okay? Many people are dreaming about the apocalypse. I've had countless, I've lost track of all of the different comments of people who have been sharing their dreams with me about apocalyptic events, dreams that are apocalyptic in nature. People have told me they dreamt that the stars disappeared, or they started moving around in the sky, or that they saw strange lightnings in their dream, or there was, stuff was falling down out of the sky and stuff. All kinds of apocalyptic dreams people are starting to have. Last but not least, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 2 through 3 in the Bible says, "For you yourselves are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night." This is how it's supposed to happen. This is how it's supposed to be, okay? It's supposed to catch most of the people off guard because this is a cleansing event. The world is toxic, from the oceans to the land to the air to the people especially. The world has become altogether toxic, and because it's a natural, cyclical, closed system, it needs to open up every once in a while in order to flush out all of that toxicity and renew its supplies and start over again. This is known biblically as the day of the Lord. This goes by many names: Judgment Day, the day of the Lord, the end of days, the apocalypse, and so on and so forth. And it's supposed to come it's supposed to catch people off guard. That's why it's a big secret. They don't want to tell everybody. They're not supposed to tell everybody. Not everybody is supposed to make it. I don't want everybody to make it, okay? And I have had talks with whoever is listening, okay? God or the universe or whatever. And I have said humbly, I recognize the toxicity in the world that I live in. I recognize also my shortcomings and my own bias. If I am a part of it, I accept my fate. You know what I mean? And I understand people don't want to think about, family members going away or, bad things happening to people that they care about and whatnot. And I get that. And that's reasonable. I understand that holds a lot of people back. Okay. It holds a lot of people back from preparing, from researching the topic, from getting ready and so on and so forth. So I get that. That is a struggle. That is a personal struggle that many people will have to deal with. And I totally understand. Now, I find comfort in, I believe in reincarnation, and I believe that, people go on. I don't believe in death. I don't believe in, an end to anything. I believe that everything continues on. But let's see. We talked about gloom and doom. The actual definitions of that: gloom means to glow. This is the glowing of the sky. The sky itself is dark right now. When you look up at the ceiling of our world, which is the highest, hardest glass ceiling, which is the firmament, which is the vault of the heavens, which is a container that keeps our world pressurized. There's not just space and then gases are just held down. No, that's all magic. That's all a deception. That's the opposite of the truth, okay? From my perspective. The people in the old world lived during the last cycle and every other cycle. They lived during a time of light. It was actually referred to as the age of light. And if you look at the cornerstone on the handiwork of the Freemasons, that's how they date their materials, their buildings, and their, architecture. They date it according to the age of light. It's called Anno Lucis, the age of light, or the year of light. That's when the light returns to this world. We live during a time of darkness right now. We live in a dark city. The world above us is dark. All right? That blackness, that is not how space is supposed to look. You know this intuitively. When you were a child, you were taught the space is full of stars, and those are all lights out there, and they're really bright, and the sun provides all this light to us. And therefore you think, well, why isn't space all lit up? Why is it black? Why is it dark? That's a reasonable question with the childlike mindset, which is something that I find to be very useful in getting past our fears and coming up with or relearning innovative theories and ancient and old ways and old ideas so that we can better understand the world we live in. Space, or the realm beyond the firmament, which I call the fractal verse, is light. That's where the stars come from. That's where the sun comes from. That's where the moon comes from. All these points of focus and projections that are up there that were known as luminaries, lights in the ancient world. They're not billions of miles away. That light is fed to us from what is on the other side, which is heaven. And heaven is up. And heaven is always bright and full of light. It's not a place of darkness and a vacuum and all of that stuff. Let's see. All right, next up. Oh, Doomsday. I want to talk about this Doomsday book. If you're unaware, there is a sort of census that was taken during medieval times. And they wrote this census into a book. And this book was called the Doomsday Book. And if you take a look at it or do a quick research, basically it was taking a census of who survived, of who was left over, and where they lived, and what land they claimed to be as their own, and they were taking an account of what was left over. This is my perspective on it, okay? Because I believe that one of the last major resets to happen, there was one back during what appears to be like the early 1800s, maybe late 1700s, somewhere in that time frame. But there was a huge one back during the Dark Ages, okay, or immediately after the Dark Ages, I should say. And that's exactly whenever we find so many of these strange anomalies when it comes to evidence in the form of leftovers from a cataclysm, including the rulers of that world taking a census of all of their slaves that they may have had at the time to see what's left over and how to get it all back together. They're trying to put their system back together. Right now, they are working to, one, confuse you, so that if you survive, you naturally want to put their system back together, okay? Because there's going to be leftovers from the elite families that have to stay behind, and so right now they're preparing their families, okay, to try to survive the apocalypse. I will tell you right now, surviving the apocalypse, there's many tips that are useful. There are many things that are useful and good to know, but luck itself will be a superpower as far as surviving the apocalypse. Let me talk about the apocalypse, okay? It is... Okay, hold on. Let me think, okay? I'm just talking from the top here. Because I usually paint it in such a positive light because I do see it as a positive thing, and I can't wait. I look forward to it. I also am very thankful to live in luxury in the time of the gods right now with technology and being able to speak to so many people on the internet and whatnot, and I appreciate it. I enjoy it. I don't take it for granted. But I also recognize that it's out of control and that the world has become sickly, and I would rather trade in all of those benefits to this age that we live in, all of those luxuries. I would trade them all in a heartbeat to have my freedom back, or to give freedom back to the good, deserving people of the world. All right? And keep in mind, many people who listen right now will have heard good people, but there's evil people out there and they think that they're good. Okay? This is a huge part of the problem. The Doomsday Book, basically, people took a census. They took an account. They wanted, and it wasn't the people. Okay, it was the rulers, it was the leaders, or the surviving families of the leaders, okay, that wanted to take an account and figure out who was left over and whatnot. Now, here's some different descriptions, okay, for all of the, people that are into receipts and stuff like that. That's fine. I like to be balanced. I'm going to give you some ancient historical records that support that the apocalypse has happened many different times, that worldwide cataclysms happen from time to time. And I strongly urge you, if you're a good person, if you're not a good person, then I really, it's fine. Like, I have to be careful about, the way I phrase things. But this video and this information, as a matter of fact, my entire channel, my books and everything, is dedicated and for good people. Okay? So if you're one of the bad ones, it's not for you. I mean, you can still buy my book and stuff, but I think the odds are way worse. Okay? The odds are in the favor of good. And I'll just say that, because this is an electromagnetic war. I guess you could look at it like that. It's good versus evil. It's positive versus negative, and there's a neutral in between. Okay? And this reset is for the good people. It is not for the evil. The evil have already been given their reward. This is their reward. This world that we live in, all the technology, all of the magic that we have in this world, the world has been given to them. This is known as the season of Satan, or Satan's little season in the Bible. Satan rules. And, people have their own concept of Satan. I just mean the ultimate negative force in this world, okay? Which is a vibration and a frequency and a lack of life-giving energy and nutrients and gases and whatnot, okay? But this is the season of Satan that we live in, which means that the millennial kingdom, biblically speaking, or the golden age, is next. That's something, that's something good to look forward to. But here's some historic records. In 793, and some of these may be close or not close, because I just quickly looked it up on ChatGPT. I do have the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle on my shelf over there, but I'd rather just read it for the sake of time. In approximately 793, the Viking raid on Lindisfarne, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says this: in this year, fierce, foreboding omens came over the land of the Northumbrians, terrifying the people most woefully. These were immense whirlwinds, flashes of lightning, and fiery dragons were seen flying in the sky. This is not sensational gossip magazines that you find at the corner store, although I'd say there's probably more truth in those than there are on the actual news, just like they mentioned in the movie Men in Black. Okay, this is actual. These were written by monks. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, okay, if you don't know what this record is, it's a historic record that's often just ignored or overlooked by mainstream historians because of all the strange anomalies that are found within it. But these are records of people who witnessed strange events, completely different changes to the entire world that they lived in, which when described and read in the modern world, where the conditions are completely different today, sound like fantasy. Dragons, fiery, not just dragons, fiery dragons. Dragons that were fiery. Fiery means to be glowing or illuminated, okay? The original word for fire was light, and then it was fire by implication. Fire is also a type of plasma. Fiery dragons were seen flying in the sky. Not just whirlwinds, but immense whirlwinds. Flashes of lightning. Goes on to say, a great famine followed these signs, and shortly after that, in the same year, on the 8th of June, the ravaging of heathen men miserably destroyed God's church. That is another thing that we see from transition to transition, from age to age. Whenever we transition from the golden age, or an age where there's an influx of positive energy into this world, which will happen and has happened, when that positivity comes to a close, when that age comes to a close, then all of the darkness that lies within the hearts and the minds of the evil and the corrupted people and animals and stuff in this world, they rise to the surface. They go on the hunt. They ridicule. They pull out and set aside and kill and defame and lock away and imprison and torture the ancient people who had survived, who were empowered, good people, okay? Sometimes they're referred to as saints, other times they were witches, other times they were wizards, or they were people of power. And I go over this concept of people of power and places of power in my new book, Return to Hyperborea, and there's a link in the description. Next up, In 878, fiery dragons, again, were seen in the sky. Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says this: in this year, strange lights appeared in the heavens. These were omens of apocalyptic events that had happened in the past, right? Or at least things that had given birth from an apocalyptic event. Strange lights being seen in the heavens. Ask yourself this: today, does there seem to be an influx of strange lights being seen up there in our heavens, in our sky? Yes, is the answer. We're going to go over the omens here in a minute. 994, starving, famine, and disease. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says this: this year brought great famine over the people, and a pestilence was rampant, the worst any had known. The land was barren, and many lives were lost. In 1014, the Great Flood. This year, before the Feast of St. Michael, the 29th of September, the sea overflowed its usual bounds, overwhelming many towns and drowning countless numbers of people. It wrought immense destruction everywhere. In 1020, a heavenly light. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says, in this year, a great light appeared in the heavens over many lands, which many interpreted as a divine sign. The people were full of fear and prayers. Let's go back to doom and gloom. Fear, way back in time, meant respect, okay? It meant acknowledging and then re-acknowledging, or to look at it again, to reconsider. Fear was a reconsideration, a constant thinking on something, okay? That's what respect means. It means to look again. That's what fear was. Fear didn't mean, oh, I'm so scared of you and that's it. It meant I have a respect for the things that may befall us, or a respect for the power of something. And it's just fear when you don't research it. When you learn nothing about it, then it becomes just pure fear, which is just you're making up stuff in your mind, okay? The more you research the apocalypse, the more you research these cyclical apocalyptic events that have happened across time, the more empowered and bold and brave that a person will become. I'm speaking from personal experience, okay? I used to also think that talking about the apocalypse was kind of scary, but now I'm not. Now I feel much better prepared, at the very least mentally, for what to expect. So, for example, whenever there's a loud earth-shattering boom, or three booms that happen in this world that break people's windows and bust out people's eardrums and stuff like that, and a loud noise, I'm immediately going to understand what's happening. I'm immediately going to say, oh, okay, I know what's going on. And I can immediately respond to that situation and do things that will increase my odds of survival. In 1033, there was famine and blood rain. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle says, this year was marked by a great famine, and strange rains fell as though of blood, staining the earth and terrifying all who saw it. Okay, so blood rain falling from the sky. There's something that happens. It's not just the sky opening up. That's half of it, okay? The sky opens up and there's otherworldly dragons, plasma, fireworms, however you want to see them. The spaghetti monster, same exact thing. Cthulhu, tentacles, space tentacles or whatever. Those are ionized gases. I believe it's hydrogen, for the most part, hydrogen, okay? Also gamma rays and other forms of radiation and stuff too. But ionized gases snake their way down into this world, attracted to the earth, and they ground themselves to the earth, causing massive amounts of damage and terraforming the world that we live in. And as a part of that, the opposite part of that is that the earth itself releases light, huge pillars and beams and posts and columns that shoot all the way up into the heavens and then spread out as if to hold up the very firmament itself, to hold the very sky itself, and to keep it from falling down on us, because the optics in this world change as the atmospheric conditions in this world change. And when the optics change, things look differently. Things that, you know, the optical effect of the sky looks different. Things can look much closer, and they do, especially when you think about the introduction of the vapor canopy, which happens during rapid depressurization. In 1066, Halley's Comet and the Norman Conquest. Now, oftentimes they'll name these comets, and, you know, I'm not saying it is Halley's Comet or anything. You see how that's square? That's meteor crater. I've actually done a video from meteor crater, but that is no impact from space rocks or anything, okay? That's electrical thunderbolt that hit the Earth. All right. 1066. Then came a comet shining brightly in the sky for 7 nights, which the people called the long-haired star. It appeared before the battle of at Hastings and was taken as a sign of great change to come. Think of this. How many comets have you heard of appearing in the night sky just in the last 5 years? You know, I'm just throwing that out there, okay? When I was a child, it was inconceivable to even see a comet. Ever. Like if you heard on the news that there was going to be a comet that you could go out and see, you'd go out and see that bad boy. You're going to check that out because that's a once in a lifetime event, is to just catch a comet or whatever. But now we're seeing them all over the place. I'm going to mention comets when we go back to the Omens, okay? So these are just some, and those aren't even exclusive, okay? This is not an all-encompassing, I'd be here forever. I'd be here forever talking about all the different historical records and events. These are just some, and I really am partial to the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles. I really appreciate that particular historic record. Now, there are also coinciding with these ancient catastrophes and cataclysms that are worldwide and span the world, okay? There's also things like the disappearance of major civilizations, tribes, and families. Here's just a small condensed list of some of them, okay? And once again, this is from ChatGPT, so take it with a grain of salt, research it yourself, and look this up for yourself to verify the information if you'd like to, okay? Some of these I'm familiar with, some I'm not, but I'm just going to read this list. Number 1, the Roanoke Colony, 1587 to 1590, suddenly, mysteriously, just up and vanished, just left. And they left everything as if they were there yesterday. The Maya civilization. Many people discuss the Maya and how it seems that they just disappeared. Are there Mayans today? Yes, because there were survivors and people that decided not to go on a holy sabbatical to return to Hyperborea or the Garden of Eden or the center place or whatnot, to the place of origin. Some people stayed behind. Okay, that happens every single time. Some people fall in love with this world. They're afraid or they're accustomed to their local regions or whatever, so they stay behind. So yes, they're going to have offspring and stuff. But in general, the Mayan civilization just up and disappeared. And they just left everything. You know what I mean? Why would you spend hundreds and hundreds of years building these huge megalithic temples and structures and all of these magnificent, amazing, breathtaking, places to live and constructions and architecture and all this stuff, just to leave it, just to abandon it? And academics tries to impress upon us that, oh, it just slowly just kind of dissipated over time. Do you see that happening today? I mean, like, do you see, like, New York City? You just see, just people got tired of New York City, so it's just abandoned. No, it doesn't typically happen like that. The ancestral Puebloans, or the Anasazi, around 1300. All right, many of these things you're going to notice, many of these dates, they start to line up as far as the approximate time of these things. The Anasazi just disappeared. Communities in the American Southwest abandoned their cliff dwellings for unclear reasons. I will tell you right now, they lived in cliffs because they were trying to keep protected from the elements and from monsters. Monsters did exist. They do exist. There's less of them today, but they will return in full force. That's another thing you can look forward to if you stay on the Southlands where we live now instead of returning to Hyperborea. You will battle monsters, okay? Some of you will be eaten by monsters. Dead serious. I'm sorry, but I'm also, depends on who it is, I don't know. Like, there's bad people in the world, and I'm looking forward to that. I will be happy to, provide lunch to the monsters or whatever. I don't care. Okay. I mean, I care. I just say that. The Olmec civilization, also around 400 BCE. This early Mesoamerican civilization declined. They always use that word. They say declined, leaving behind colossal stone heads and little record. The Indus Valley civilizations, or the Harappans, around 1900 BC, advanced cities in modern Pakistan and India were abandoned with unclear causes. Wow. The Clovis culture, around 11,000 years ago. Early North American inhabitants disappeared, possibly due to climate change or megafauna extinction. This is ChatGPT speculating on why they just disappeared or whatever, but I'll tell you my reasons and my theory on that in just a second. Rapa Nui. The Rapa Nui of Easter Island, circa 18th century. The population declined dramatically after European contact, deforestation, and other challenges. All right. If you just think about the actual moai, the giant head statues of Easter Island, and then you think about their whole civilization just kind of suddenly declined or vanished, I'd say there's way more to the story. The Khmer Empire, around the 15th century, builders of Angkor Wat, mysteriously abandoned many cities. The Minoans, around 1450 BCE, advanced Bronze Age civilization on Crete, possibly devastated by volcanic eruption or invasion. Speaking of volcanic eruptions, you will hear this as well, these different major volcanic eruptions. Some of these are very suspect for me personally, especially Pompeii. Okay, was it Pompeii? Yeah, it was Herculaneum and Pompeii, right? There is only one surviving witness, alleged witness, of Pompeii blowing up. Okay? I'm not talking about all the people that are frozen and petrified in place or whatever. I'm talking about an actual witness who saw it, who saw the whole thing, saw the mountain blowing up, and oh my God, this is the biggest one ever. Only one person wrote about that, and he happened to be a historian, and he happened to be the son of a famous historian already. And then he happened to paint his father in this heroic light. There's something very wrong with the Pompeii story. The Minoans, the Mississippian culture around 1400, known for Cahokia and the mound builders, they declined for uncertain reasons. The people of Thule, or Thule, 1400 CE, predecessors of modern Inuit, or Eskimos, largely disappeared from Arctic settlements. We also have the Kukuteni Tripilia culture around 3000 BC. Neolithic European society and modern Ukraine and Romania vanished from the archaeological record. Just up and gone, just out of here, just disappeared. The Hittites around 1200 BC. Major Bronze Age power in Anatolia collapsed during the late Bronze Age collapse. The Sea Peoples around 1200 BCE. The Sea Peoples were a mysterious maritime group often blamed for the late Bronze Age collapse and then themselves disappeared. The Cloud People around 16th century. Indigenous people of Peru faded after Spanish conquest. The Greenland Norse around the 15th century. These were Norse settlements on Greenland. They just disappeared, vanished without a trace. Just left all of their ruins and their houses and stuff behind. Likely due to environmental and economic decline, they speculate, okay? Greenland is also of particular interest. All of these places in the north, especially, are of our particular interest. All of these cultures watched the sun. They watched the luminaries. They watched the heavens because they knew when the heavens started to act weird and strange, and you saw lights and luminaries that were moving in anomalous ways, or that they were getting brighter or dimmer or whatever. They kept note of this because they directly correlated changes in the heavens with coming changes on the earth, appropriately too. And then last but not least, on this list at least, is the Tiwanaku, or Tiwanaku, around 1000 CE. Pre-Columbian Andean civilization collapsed with unclear causes. All right. Now, Greenland is of particular interest too. That's another one of the omens that I wrote down to discuss. Trump wants to buy Greenland. There is an increased interest in the Arctic all of a sudden. What happened with that? Well, the Arctic just used to be just a bunch of water or ice. You know, no one really knows. Sometimes it's just all frozen on maps. Sometimes it's just all water on maps. It's all blurred out on Google Maps. There's all these military bases and stuff all the way around the Arctic Circle, and none of the explanations are reasonable to me personally. Now let's talk about. Now, before I get to omens, I want to discuss and throw out some of the omens in just a second. But first, I just want to sort of generalize about the apocalypse. Okay, I've got a very short video called "What is the Plasma Apocalypse?" It's in my Plasma Apocalypse playlist. I always try to put it at the front of the playlist. Every once in a while, I mix up videos on the playlist, you know, so that people can see some of the older videos or whatever. But I always have that one up there, and I go over details, not even completely covering it, okay, because this covers everything. To me, this is the grand unified conspiracy theory, if you want to look at that, okay? This connects everything. This connects the beginning and the end, and it reverberates throughout time and everything in between. It touches everything, all right? Some of the things that I strongly advise you to take into consideration are the scary things. This is the doom and the gloom. This only doom and gloom. It's only depressing and sad to people that are just comfortable in whatever positions you have in life right now. And I'm not saying that you're bad for being comfortable at all, okay? I understand. I'm not saying that you're wrong for not wanting to think about death and destruction or whatever, but I am saying when it comes, it's going to catch you off guard more than it would others who are actually researching and, listening to, similar content or whatever, or, studying or whatever, taking these things into consideration, keeping them in the back of their mind for when it actually comes back around and when it actually happens. Every fear, every phobia comes from the apocalypse, okay? Every single one. Every single work of quote-unquote fiction and science fiction are directly related to the beginning and the end of these cycles that happen in our world. They are both the same, okay? The beginning back here was the end of the prior cycle, and the end of that cycle was the beginning of the next cycle. The beginning and the end are the exact same, okay? Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's cyclical and looping, and it's acts like a vortex in nature, or a toroidal field or whatever. But there are terrifying things for those of you who are not prepared, okay? For example, monsters, I mentioned earlier. I love talking about monsters. I fully know that monsters do exist and did exist in mass in the ancient world, okay? And I talk about the rise of humanity and how they came back out from underground and they learned the pros and the cons of all of these different types of monsters, which ones were beneficial, which ones could help them to, to work in agriculture and other things like elephants and stuff, and which ones were predatory. And they went out and they had monster hunters, okay? Gigantism of insects. I mean, everything will grow to be gigantic in the next cycle. We're all tiny right now, okay? I don't care if you're 6 feet tall, 7 feet tall, whatever. You're tiny. You're a who in Whoville. You're a tiny person, as are all the animals for the most part. Well, I mean, we get some remnants. Like, look at lions. Those are cats. They're just cats, okay? But they're giant. Look at bears. To me, it's a dog, basically, okay? A bear is like a dog to me. I don't know. But we still have gigantic animals, and we take them completely for granted. Okay, we just stick them in zoos and they're anomalies, and they're just like, wow, look at that. Oh, it's a tiger or whatever. When in reality, it's a giant cat. It's a cat with gigantism that is left over and has survived. Still smaller than it used to be. Okay, but I've talked many times about the time of the mega fauna. Fauna just means like animal. And mega means big. The giant animals that existed in our records, okay? Everything was giant back then. Giants exist. Human giants exist and did exist so much in the old world that the anomaly wasn't giants. People didn't sit down and just feel the need to write all about giants because everybody was giant further back in time, okay? Like I said, everything's backwards and upside down, so they'll try to convince you that, oh no, people were smaller back then. Look, we have this one knight's armor that's 3 feet tall or something stupid. No, okay, that's not what your religions say. That's not what your historic records say. That's not what I find when I research the past. People were healthier further back in time. Now, keep in mind, it depends on which time and how far back you go, because it's a cycle. It happens over and over and over, okay? People get big, they shrink down. They get big, they shrink down. They get really healthy, they live longer, they become sickly and toxic and whatnot, okay? So it all depends on what point in time you're looking at when you go back, at what point you are in these cycles. So monsters, okay? So some of the things you can expect. Definitely monsters. There are underworld beings, creatures, insectoids, humanoids, and all kinds of scary, otherworldly, strange, alien things that live beneath our feet right now. They're doing their thing. They're living their lives now. And they will be released, and they will come up to the surface, and there will be catastrophes. There will be onslaughts and slaughterings and wars. And this gets to World War III, and this whole World War III, everyone thinks World War III is like that government versus this government. It's called World War for a reason, okay? Because it harkens to the time that will come when all of the world will be at war. From the elements to the insects to the animal kingdom to the plants to the people, okay? To monsters and everything. Everything will be thrown together in a flux that is shaking it all up in a jar, to be figurative or whatever. That's World War. That's Ragnarok. All right. The world is going to burn. Okay. That's even before the actual apocalypse comes. Okay. During the apocalypse, there's much worse to prepare for and to try to survive. Okay. But the sun itself is getting hotter and is going to end up scorching the earth. All right. Like I said, this is all my research, my perspective and whatnot. And for more in-depth information, check out my channel, the other videos, my books and stuff too. Or my website, JayDreamerZ.com. The sun itself is going to scorch the earth. Fire, great fire, will come down out of the heavens, out of the sky, and it will burn the armies of the world. All right. What else? Depressurization. So all at once, things are going to float. There's going to be zero gravity. That alone is going to scare a bunch of people. They're going to start weighing less and less and less, and then they're going to want to try to, like, oh my God, it's going to get to such an extreme. They're going to panic. Just the fact that they're starting to weigh less, and then whenever they're walking, they're starting to bounce now, and then pretty soon they'll just start floating into the air at the slightest wind, and there's going to be extreme winds, hurricane force winds, the world across. That will just blow everyone up into the air and take them up into the rupture, this is the rapture event, okay? Where they can be with the Lord in the heavens or whatever. That can be scary to people too, okay? Just starting to suddenly float out of nowhere because of rapid depressurization of our atmosphere, the world across. Instant petrification, okay? We have this. We have many examples of instant biological, often human petrification. Okay, there's many different ancient stories all throughout comparative mythology and religion, and in actual physical, evident examples in our world today of petrified humans, petrified people and animals and plants and all kinds of things. Water petrified. How the hell do you petrify water except for through some sort of act of God or apocalyptic event? And if you don't believe me, just look up, fossils of fish eating fish, or fossils of jellyfish, or all these different fossils of creatures in water, and they try to explain it by saying, oh, it's just a random mudslide in this random place, and it just happens all the time all across the world. No, it doesn't. It happens all at one time. There is one time when these crazy world-changing, world-shaping events happen. That is once in a blue moon, when the moon turns blue. The sun will also turn blue too. On every other cycle, it's red, okay? So on one cycle, you have a red moon, a blood moon, and a red sun. On the other cycle, you have a blue moon and a blue sun, or whatever. And that's the cycle we're in right now, okay? Which is good, all right? The cycle by fire is easier to survive, and it's less devastating. The cycle by water is terrible. It's much harder to get through the cycle by water. The water gets in everything. It goes everywhere. And it becomes very difficult. You have to become a seafaring people to survive. There's always anomalies and exceptions to that. But what are some other things to be fearful of, or to show respect to, or to reconsider and to think about, or to consider for the first time? Listen, if this is a dark place for you mentally, that talking about the apocalypse and the end of the world, and realizing that on the Georgia Guidestones, whenever it was left over in these 10 Illuminati commandments or whatever, when they said keep the population under 500 million, which I believe is what it used to say, that wasn't a threat that any secret group is going to kill off most of their own slaves, okay? That was a suggestion to survivors. And that whole thing, and many of these megaliths are monuments. They're like time capsules, okay? And they know that the world is going to come to an end. It's going to come to a close. It's going to start over, Okay, and people will come across these megaliths and these different structures and stuff. And this was actually referred to in ancient Jewish writings and Christian writings, that discuss how the knowledge of the apocalypse, one by water and one by fire, was passed down from generation to generation, firstborn to firstborn. One moment. All right. So petrification. I mean, being electrified, being electrocuted. Obviously, there's a danger whenever. Okay, let me back up. When the atmosphere depressurizes, which it will, okay, the world across. When this happens, it rips the atmosphere, which creates mist and fog, the world across. There's more to it than just that, but basically we have a vaporous canopy over our world, okay, because our world is not a spinning, wobbling, flying glob of whatever through uncharted territory and all that story, okay? Our world is more like a snow globe. And that world, whenever the dome cracks open and the atmosphere rushes out of it and things start to float up and all that happens, that world becomes vaporous. So there's mist and there's fog all over the place, which is why we have this knowledge that we have to correlate fog with red lights and monsters almost every single time, okay, or apocalyptic events. And that's why it's spooky. It's not because, anything could hide in the fog, and, it's just, who cares? You know what I mean? Anything could be around the corner or whatever. But that's why I was talking about fears, okay, and phobias. Like, for example, phobias of clowns. All right, I had a guest on my channel, and he has written a book called The Nephilim or Clowns. He's talks about it extensively over at his channel, Understanding Conspiracy. Shout out to you. Thank you for being a guest on my channel, and I love your work. The fear of clowns comes from these otherworldly space travelers, or fractalverse travelers, as I call them, that come down into this world from above, typically. And they're giant, and they're albino. Okay, they're pasty white and flush, and they put makeup on and stuff to try to fit in. These are the Anunnaki clowns, or Nephilim clowns. These are the killer clowns from outer space. And this is why so many people have just a strange, unknown, unreasonable, almost, fear of an entity that is supposed to bring you laughter and make you laugh and happy. You know what I mean? Hold on, I gotta check my chat, make sure everything's good, but I lost my chat. Hold on. Ah, here we go. Okay, everybody looks good. Wow, there's a bunch of people watching right now. Welcome, 538 of you. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to share. Feel free to check me out. I'm going to become more active on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on all of those things, because, I feel like this is kind of my purpose right now. All right, so anyways, my point is, the doom and gloom aspect goes away. It changes into the dome and the glowing. Whenever I have researched and filled my mind with light, okay? When your mind is full of darkness, that's ignorance. And in the future, or in the present, people, it is said, become willingly ignorant. They don't want to know. They're too comfy in their world that they live in, and the system that's providing them all of the luxuries and comforts of life and whatnot, right? Many people are going to die. Okay, not from being crushed, not from electrical discharge, not from monsters or phantazoids or giant bugs, freaking parasitic bugs laying babies in your chest, which also will happen. But some people will die of just fear. Okay, they'll just have a heart attack and die. They'll just be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe all the crap that I'm seeing right now," and they'll just black out. Many people are going to black out. Okay, maybe not die. The Bible says people will have heart attacks and die. They'll be so scared. But some people are going to be so scared they just black out. And because they're blacked out, they can't hold on to anything whenever everything's getting sucked up into the sky, and so they float away and die anyway. Now, this could account for, many of these missing civilizations or whatnot. The fact that they could have just been sucked up or blown away or whatever. However, my theory on that is more likely that these civilizations had ancient knowledge. They understood the cyclical nature of the plasma apocalypse and how the poles, the magnetic poles, shift and how it affects us. And they, according to their histories, whether they be written down or oral tradition, they knew there was a safe place to go. They knew that they didn't live in that safe place, and they knew there was a sign to look for, to find, and return to that safe place. This is all my second book, Ancient Oblivion, Return to Hyperborea. I discuss in great detail that place of safety, the eye of the storm, where it is, what it's comprised of, what it looks like, how it works, what you can expect on the way there. Genetic mutations is another one I talk about quite often on my channels. You know, some subjects are more popular than others, but our atmosphere and in various places around the world, especially, you know, in areas that I call places of power and whatnot, there's different types of radioactive energy. Okay, some harmful, some not harmful, some beneficial. Okay, and these cause humans to mutate. You, if you survive, are probably going to mutate in some way, shape, or form, okay? That doesn't mean that you'll be all ugly and look weird or anything. Many people will just go back to their natural way of growing and adapting, especially when you live for hundreds and hundreds of more years. You'll have more stages of puberty. You'll probably grow your tail back out because humans used to have tails. Horns. If you live long enough, many elderly people, they actually start growing horns and stuff like that on different places in their body, but oftentimes the head. And there's other things too. There's also wild mutations, or those that aren't super beneficial, or they make people look not so attractive or whatever. It depends on your perspective. But they're entire tribal nations of mutant people, of human mutants. Let me back the mic off. Calm down. Whole nations. Okay? Not one-off examples. There were one-off examples, but I'm talking about entire mutant human nations, all with seemingly the same exact mutation. Like entire tribes of hunchbacks, entire tribes of people that can stretch their bodies in extreme forms. Entire tribes of people that look like they have like bear faces or cat faces or dog faces, or, you know, this is how people try to describe them because they're so strange looking. Right? Werewolf tribes, the beautiful tribes, whole islands of only women, and all this stuff that happens. It has to do with our genetics and how these energies interact with our DNA and our genome. Okay? But people will become mutants. Not everybody. There's always anomalies and exceptions, and I don't believe everybody's going to become a mutant. As a matter of fact, I believe most of the survivors will inherit positive attributes, positive gifts, like seeing the rise of superpowers. Okay, I'm supposed to be focusing on the negative. I'm sorry. Let me get back to the negative. I want to really focus on the negative purposefully, okay? Because it spurs some people. It lights a fire under some people's butt, is when they hear the reality and the truth behind the negative things, the scary things that they can expect. Your world will become every horror movie you have ever seen. Because, and worse than them, because it's going to be all of them combined together. Okay, depends on where you live in the world and stuff like that. Okay, but that's what these movies are all about. They are all a retelling of ancient Oblivion, history that we have forgotten about as we have fallen into a deep sleep and a trance, and also cast under a spell from ourselves, because I like to take responsibility for that, for being, you know, my own participation in being tired and sleepy and allowing other people to control me and stuff, but also purposeful manipulation. All right. And there's a point to all of that as well. But yeah, there's scary times lie ahead. But to me and to many of you out there, not scarier than the world as it is now. Okay, this world will become the future horror stories when we've survived the plasma apocalypse. For those of us who do, okay. And I just hope that I do. I'd like to, very much. For those of us who do survive, the times we live in, whatever the world is like as you're watching this presentation, this will be the horror story. This will be science fiction. This will be the stories of old. This will turn into legend and myth, and it will vanish from memory. And it's up to us, the people who are aware and researching and studying, to be on top of things now, so that when those days come, we become the storytellers. We become the historians. We become the matriarchs and patriarchs of our own tribes and nations and whatnot. And we determine what that next world will look like. which is why the good people are supposed to survive more than the bad people. Okay? When you're bad, and I'm just speaking in vague generalities for simplicity, but when you're bad, it's your energy. It's not just you, like your body's bad or you just did something or whatever. You have an energy to you. You have a energetic signature, a frequency, a vibration about you. You can manipulate and mold and grow or destroy that vibration. But that vibration is energy. And energy, when it comes in contact with other energies, will either be attracted to it or repelled by it, right? Those energies, those dragons that come down into this world, the Valkyries of old, those are the ones that determined who lived and who died. They had plasma vision. They had electromagnetic vision because they are electromagnetic in nature. As were many beings from within the earth that have souls that are so amplified that their chakras and their auras extend way further out than ours do today, and they were able to see into the hearts of men and women everywhere, okay? And oftentimes these particular types of phantazoids or otherworldly monstrous animals, some of them were tamed and used for that ability, right? Especially in like ancient China and stuff like that. They had specific dog-looking monstrous creatures that could see the heart and soul of future emperors or people that were going to try to come into authority or whatever. And they were put in the same room with these creatures. And if they were evil, they would attack them. They would go after them and kill them or knock them off a cliff or whatever it may be. So monsters, phantazoids, zombies. There's going to be zombies, okay? I'm not super scared of zombies, you know, as they're portrayed, but you got to think about it. If it's all of the dead ever, that's a lot. All right, just the sheer numbers that's why they're scary. Okay, not only that, but zombies, even though we see them as being like slow moving and we sort of cartoonify them so that it's almost a joke. Zombies are no joke. Okay, this is the dead being reanimated, coming back to life. Think about all those otherworldly insects that have gigantism, right? That lay babies inside of people, the parasitic ones or whatever. Think of otherworldly monsters that have otherworldly diseases and stuff. Who do you think they're going to feast on first? Zombies, okay? And the zombies are going to have these diseases and be infected and stuff, and they're going to go around touching other people and getting them infected and stuff too. So zombies are very much a part of the apocalypse, and that's not just fiction. That is historic record across time. As a matter of fact, during the medieval times, zombies were such a problem that people were buried with rocks in their mouths to keep them from waking up from the dead and eating other people. People were buried face down. People had spikes put through them. You know how like the vampires, they say to put like a stake through its heart or whatever? That's where that comes from. People buried these people and then spiked them through the coffin and into the earth to keep them in place. They pinned them down because they don't want the dead to come back to life. And that's just during the Middle Ages, right? Oftentimes you can actually see graves where there's cages over the graves to keep the dead from coming back to life. This wasn't just fanciful, wishful thinking. Like people were like, oh, I think zombies sound cool. Let's make that real. No, it's because it is real. Okay. Zombies are real. The dead, whatever you want to call them. There's different words for zombies in different countries across the world, but the dead come back to life. Okay. And there will be a time of no death. That's also kind of scary, depending upon your particular conditions. Okay, if you're healthy and you happen to be catching all the right places in the apocalypse and you're doing good, then not being able to die is great. Okay, that's good news. But if you get, for example, there's some gigantic bug, 10 years after the apocalypse, or I won't say that. I'll say during the time of no death. There's a time of no death. It's a time of no death because the atmosphere initially is so electrically amplified that your spirit, your soul is also amplified. It can't die, okay? No matter how much the body gets injured or hurt to a certain degree, pretty much someone would have to be decapitated in order to die in that time, if they even could, okay? But there's a time of no death. The Bible refers to this. The Quran refers to this. People cannot die during this time. So if you're all mangled and stuff, or people are so scared that they thought that they would, just reset themselves, they will be in for a surprise whenever they wake up from having jumped off of a skyscraper and they're all mangled and broken, but still alive, or infected by some nasty parasitic giant bug that's now giant worms and larvae are growing inside of you while you're still alive. Okay? This is terrifying. This is hell on earth, depending on your perspective. All right? Remember, I'm only emphasizing the negative nature of it to cast light upon it so that it's not negative any longer. Okay? Like if you told those people during the time of monsters and magic and all that stuff about today's world, they'd be terrified. They'd be like, oh, how could that even be? I would not want to live in that world. That's crazy. You know? So lots of terrifying things that happen during the apocalypse. And I will wrap up with some good news too here in a bit. But first I want to talk about omens. That's the last part to this particular presentation. Omens. So what are omens? I do a segment on my channel called Omens. Okay, it specifically is all about recognizing and taking note of and keeping track of the different anomalies that are happening. Blips. All these blips in our historic timeline, and how these blips maybe happened every once in a while, but now they're happening all of the time. Okay, they're starting to say things like the new normal. When you live during strange times and all of this strangeness in the world is just considered to be the new normal, that normal is just fluctuation and chaos, that's a huge red flag that the apocalypse is upon us. Okay, here are some, just some. There's hundreds, probably thousands of these different omens, but I just quickly listed some of the major ones that I can think of that are happening now. Okay, I also want to throw this out there. You cannot, this is my perspective and my belief, all right, so far. Not one person can predict the apocalypse and say it's going to happen on this year, on this day, at this time, on this day of the week, or whatever. Beware of that, because that's another one of the omens is false prophets and the rise of cults. Cults abound these days, okay? Anybody with any kind of following can turn very quickly into cults because the people are sleepwalkers. They're sheeple. They're asleep at the wheel, okay? They love the structure of the slave class that has been invented for us, okay? So therefore, they want to be told the truth. They don't want to find the truth. They don't want to research the truth. They don't want to discover it for themselves or walk the path. They just want to be told the truth. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to excite you, because I'm really just exciting myself. I'm getting pumped up personally about it, which reinvigorates me and it gives me purpose during these crazy times. Okay, so it's this. What I'm saying is for me, not for you. If you benefit from it, it's great. This is also for my children and for people that are close to me that I care about or whatever. But it's very few. I'll tell you that. Now, some of the oceans that are happening now that lead to an apocalyptic cycle are the oceans changing color. In the Bible, it talks about how the oceans will turn red. A third of the world's oceans are going to turn red. They say it's the blood red ocean. It's not blood. There's not blood. There's not just a whole bunch of blood that just fills up the whole ocean. It is red tide. The oceans go from blue or clear or water, color to green. They turn green because of all of the bacteria and disgusting, toxic, bitter waters that the ocean turns into. And all that bacteria turns into red tide. And that red tide releases toxins into the atmosphere and into the air currents and stuff. And those toxins float over major cities and people start developing respiratory sicknesses and diseases. And they become sick and their eyes burn. And they get all these weird things happening, these symptoms and signs. But the oceans are now, you can look this up, not blue. Okay, it's not the blue marble any longer. It is the green marble because most of the ocean is green. Technically, according to even academics, they've done papers on this. Sinkholes opening up everywhere, the world across. Gigantic sinkholes that seem to just go down forever or so deep that they release some of that under earth water and it rises up. Sinkholes opening up all over the earth. Why? Because the earth is releasing massive amounts of gas. This is what happens when a woman is pregnant, okay? And the earth is a woman, okay? Symbolically speaking, the earth is a female, okay? Just, I'm being symbolic. Okay, as far as energies go, the Earth is female. And she is pregnant. All right, she's pregnant with what? The light, which the light will be released in the form of all of these sky pillars and sky beams and stuff that will shoot up from these caves and plasma volcanoes and stuff too. But those gases are being released now. Okay, these are birth pangs. When a woman is in birth or is pregnant, she has all these pains and she releases gases and the water breaks at a certain time, and the Earth does that too. Okay, we do that because the Earth does that. So all these sinkholes are opening up everywhere because all these gases are being released. The inside of the Earth is heating up. Radioactive decay is increasing, and all the elements are getting hotter and hotter down inside of the Earth, which is heating up the lower portions of the ocean as well. But those gases rise up, and right now they're rising up slowly but in mass, so much so that they're reshaping the underworld. And lots of dirt and stuff is falling down, and it's creating sinkholes, basically. Excuse me, I had a hiccup. Increased orb sightings, okay? Orbs, balls of light, ball lightning, pixies, fairies, spirits, wheels within wheels. I don't know how else you want to describe it, but I see them all the time. I've taken video, and I just don't want to share the video because it's at night and it never looks very good as it does with my actual eyes. You know what I mean? But I have videos on my phone of orbs, of balls of light that are not stars. They are not satellites. They are balls of light. It's electromagnetism. It's self-contained, and they can do all kinds of things. They can move just like light can move. They usually follow electrical currents, so you see them moving in particular patterns. They can disappear and then reappear in different places. They can split off or split in half or divide or whatever. Increased orb sightings. Now, in connection with the orb sightings, we have massive wildfires. People saw orbs. They have videos of orbs shooting out of these wildfires. Specifically, I'm thinking of the video I saw of the California wildfires right now. Those orbs shot out of those fires, okay? That's because they're electricity. They're little fairies and balls of lightning and stuff. And I just realized I'm late for Tommy Truthful's live stream, but he's probably late anyways. He's always late. So it's his birthday. I want to say shout out, happy birthday to Tommy, my buddy. I'm going to wrap this video up, and then I'm going to join you on your channel for your birthday bash. But anyways, yeah, these little balls of electricity are lighting things on fire, but specifically those areas where lots of these combustible gases come up out of the Earth, and then those orbs and balls of fire or electricity combust. They allow those gases to combust, which is Tunguska, which is exactly what happened in Tunguska. So you have these little dancing fairies or pixies or whatever that dance about the land and set things on fire in random places. That's how many of these wildfires begin. Not from cigarettes, not from matches, not from campfires, okay? Although those things do happen. It's from orbs, okay? It's from balls of electromagnetism. Increased sightings of transient luminous events, or TLEs. Okay, these are things like giant blue jets of electricity reaching up above cloud systems and stuff, and other types of TLEs. Humans out of control. That one's, I'm not even going to get into detail on that. You already know. All right, and if you don't know, go watch Joey B versus the World, because that entire channel is awesome, but it's also, every single presentation is the omens of us. Okay, the omens of humanity and how we're acting. And there's a reason for that. It's because the world's energy is in flux. Animal migration patterns. Animals are all over the place. They're not following their typical migration patterns. They're following the electromagnetic field that is in flux. In flux means it's chaotic. Okay, we live during a chaotic time right now because the electromagnetism and the currents of the air that animals can see and sense, then we have lost that ability to. They're following them, but they're following them out of control. So they're being led down the wrong path. Okay, increased comet sightings. Many of them are green. That's weird. Like, that's a strange thing. But nowadays it's just like, oh yeah, another green comet. That's just weird to me. All these colorful comets. Yeah, so many of these comet sightings are just completely omens in and of themselves. The appearance of colored lightning. How about that? Lightning just used to be white. Remember those days? The good old days when it was just white lightning? Now they got red lightning. They got purple lightning. They got all kinds of crazy colors of lightning. That's because of those gases, okay? The color of the lightning is dependent upon the color of gas. And when you have all these strange gases that are being released into particular areas, and then they have to dissolve and, you know, mix in or whatever. The sun changing colors. I know some of you know for a fact the sun used to be yellow. It's white now with a tint of blue. And it's going to become more and more blue as time goes on. It used to be red. Research it. Check it out. Look into the ancient world. The sun was red. Okay? And we're going through a color spectrum shift right now. The moon is brighter. Look outside tonight. I dare you. Go check out the moon tonight. It's casting crisp shadows. And it looks like a spotlight. Just like from the Truman Show. The moon is brighter. The stars are brighter. It is the shortening of days. The days are flying past. Just like in Three-Body Problem, they say, let the days fly past. This is the shortening of days. There's no time in any day to get anything done, to accomplish anything, to get some rest, to catch up on anything. The days are flying past. What is it? Already January 17th of 2025 as I'm making this video. It's like New Year's felt like it was yesterday. Okay? NASA is a bunch of doomsday preppers. Okay? Elon, NASA, all these people. Okay? Not all of them, but the top ones are doomsday preppers. They're getting ready to leave the earth during the apocalypse. They don't want to hang out during this time whenever everyone has telepathy and they can read your mind and you can't hide anything from them. Increased underground bunkers are being built now more than ever. Huge, massive underground cities, bunkers, towns, doomsday little pods and stuff like that, but especially by the elite of the world. There's an interest in the Arctic for some reason lately. All of the countries of the world, the major ones, the major powers and players are all interested in the Arctic for some reason now, all of a sudden, right? When it's supposed to just be water and just nothing up there, right? They're going to all get closer and closer to Hyperborea. They're going to move in on the promised land. They're going to move in on the city of the saints or whatever. Extreme weather. Jeez, man. People are blind if they can't see the extreme weather that's happening. There's this extreme between extreme hot, extreme cold, the worst tornadoes every single year, the worst hurricanes, the worst earthquakes. The worst things are happening now, and they're happening more than they ever have. People will deny that all day long. They'll say, "Oh, it's just because of technology. We can make note of it more." No, okay, that's you're allowed to have your opinion, but I'm sharing with you mine. Reversal of the core of the Earth. According to them, the core of the Earth has reversed and stopped spinning. Also, the movement of the magnetic pole itself, that all of a sudden started sprinting towards the North Pole only a few years back. Let's talk about the good news, and then we're going to wrap things up for today, okay? This is an extremely important topic to me personally. I feel like it is the most important topic that I could even discuss in the world. To me, it's almost the only thing worth discussing next to being a good person, okay? Because to me, that's what it's really all about. It's about being a good person. Your energy will be different. Like I said, those Valkyries, those dragons, those whatevers, they can see into your soul. They can see your aura, okay? And if you're good, it'll interact with those good energies and those bad energies. Remember, like how energies interact with one another, positive and negative. So what is the good news? The good news is some of you will survive. Some of you will make it through. Some of you will make it through because you prepared. You just happen to prepare in the right way. Some of you will prepare and prepare and prepare, and the craziest, quickest death will come because some crazy giant iceberg falls out of the sky and squishes you. I don't know. Okay, I'm just being realistic. Okay, sometimes it doesn't. Depending on your case, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much you prepare. Your doom is right around the corner. Other people might just get lucky. Okay, so there's going to be people that just get lucky. There's going to be people that slip between the cracks. There's going to be people who do survive because they are prepared. They know how to react. They're wise. They keep their wits about them. They're sober-minded, and they understand what to do in certain scenarios. Like whenever all the oxygen's getting sucked up into the atmosphere and you're breathing in a vacuum, and it's very difficult because it feels like your breath is being taken away at the appearance of the Lord, and there's earthquakes causing every knee to bow and everyone falls down. and you remain calm, and you focus on a happy thought, and you work on the steady breathing, and you happen to have a can of oxygen off to the side, and you use it in increments. And, you know, being wise like that can help you not to black out and pass out and then die, basically, okay? Another good news is inheriting superpowers, all right? Many of you are going to carry with you into the next world super strength. Your body is dense. The world to come is not dense, okay? All the rocks and all this stuff, everything will be more clay form. And then it'll get dense over time. And that's how they were able to mold and shape all these strange rocks, lift up heavy objects, because things weighed less back then. But you'll have super dense muscles, skin, bones, all this stuff. You'll basically be a superhero like Superman, okay? Just to you know, give an example. Telepathy will be restored. You'll be able, no one will be able to hide secrets. It will be very difficult for anyone to hide their secrets, to hide their innermost desires or their thoughts, okay? Which tends to make for a more honest society, all right? Where people know if you're lying or not. What's the point of even lying at all, or trying to deceive anybody? This world will be yours for the picking. Ripe for the picking, okay? You get to go wherever you want to and settle down, reestablish a world, and, you know, recreate your own tribes and your own nations and whatnot. You get to shape the next world to your liking, okay? The good news also, there's good monsters, okay? You know, there's bad ones, there's predators and stuff. I have a better description of them on my website under the tab Phantazoids of the Plasma Apocalypse. But there's different classifications of these otherworldly monsters and stuff. What else is some good news? Oh, how about living much longer for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Becoming immortal, depending upon where you live. If you live on the outskirts or the suburbs, or if you live closer to a place of power, or if you live in Hyperborea and you return to the Garden of Eden. Now, with this knowledge, you can learn where the Garden of Eden is. You can learn where the Fountain of Youth is. I do believe in an actual, literal, physical Fountain of Youth. I believe in many fountains of youths, but I believe there is one major one in this world that exists physically, a terrestrial paradise at the center of the world. And I write all about that in my newest book. All right. So if you want to know more about the world to come, the post-apocalypse, how things begin, how they start over, that's my second book, Return to Hyperborea. So there's a link in the description. You can go to JayDreamerZ.com. If you purchase my books from me, you get an autograph, you get merch, and all kinds of other stuff that comes with it for about $10 more than what the book all by itself costs on Amazon. Okay, so if you want, you can also go to Amazon and buy the book for $10 less. I do wrap these things personally. I send them out personally. I've got lots of cool stuff like mini posters, you know, of like Mount Meru, plasma volcanoes, all this kind of fun stuff, as well as bookmarks, obviously, to go with my books. There's much good news, okay? Cellular regeneration, living a lot longer and whatnot. There's a good side to all of this, but the fear demands respect, okay? The fear is a path that leads to enlightenment if you face it head on, okay? And by that I mean research. I mean learn. Stop being willingly ignorant. Stop casting it aside. Stop minimizing. Stop disbelieving when the evidence is all around us, everywhere, okay? There have been old worlds after old worlds after old worlds. This is the new one. This is the new age. This is the, you know, what they say the Illuminati are trying to do, the one world governments or whatever. You live in that now. You live in a dystopia now. The utopia is right around the corner. And that's my presentation on Doomsday. Thank you all for joining me very much. Enjoy these credits by people who support my work and my livelihood. I appreciate you all, and I'll see you next time. And until then, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
Forcing me to stay. wake up.